towards the National CAD standards using our Standards Manager software. Also at the same time, I believe you guys are coming from 2007 up to 2012 at this point, and also talking to Mark Dickinson that you guys might be going to 2014 as well. What we're going to be showing today will be the same whether it's in 2012 or 2014, so no changes have to be made in that case. I'm just going to be showing 2012 at this point. And the biggest thing that I do want to kind of point out is our software is accessed either by a toolbar or a ribbon. For those of you who might not be familiar, this is the new interface that AutoCAD uses. Should be a Standards Manager tab in there for every user. And if this does not appear in your ribbon tab, you will have to type in CSM at the command line. It's a command that reinitializes. And again, if that doesn't work, then obviously we got to get hold of Mark and get it installed on your machine. So the first thing you want to try is, if you don't have it installed on your 2012, is to type in CSM at the command line. All right. So currently, the system that we have in place for you guys does have the old standard and the new standard, so you can go to both if you like. So we're going to kind of walk through this this ribbon here from left to right, dealing with how to create layers and get your symbols and textiles and whatnot, and kind of show you the workflow on getting old drawings to the new standard, etc. So the first thing you'll kind of see here on the left-hand side is the set current standard, display current standard, and you guys really won't have to deal with the save current drawing as a standard. But currently I have it set to the current standard of BKF_NCS, which is the new standard. If you do need to go back and forth between them, it's as simple as setting the current standard. And you're not going to see all these in the list. It's just my humongous list of stuff I've been testing. But you'll have two. One's called BKF, one's called BKF NCS. So the BKF is the old one, and the BKF NCS is the new one. So if you want to keep existing projects in the existing standard, you have more than full capability of doing that. But we're going to kind of concentrate on the NCS standard for BKF. Now, it definitely does use the NCS criteria. For those of you who do not know, I'm going to put up a document here. This is the NCS materials on how to deal with layers. And I just want to, this is, 90-page document. Obviously, we're not going to deal with that. But it's a 5-category system, up to 5. So you'll see that there's a discipline designator and then up to 4 different components. They're called layer components. The first one being the discipline, A for architectural, C for civil, V for survey. And the reason why for V for survey is the fact that the S is actually used for structural. But you'll see here there's a lot of different capabilities on dealing with the layers. And I'm just going to point out a few things. The reason why is you currently have a system where they have an EX or a PR at the beginning for existing, proposed, etc. National CAD Standards puts that on the end. N for new, you can see E for existing, F for future. They put those at the very end. Okay? So what we've done here is, instead of saying N for new, what we're going to assume is if any layer has no status, in this case, it does not have a status, we're going to assume it's proposed. So the existing will have E, the F for future will be there, but for now, just this part, we're going to assume that it's proposed. So I kind of want to point that out, and you kind of see how to make these layers and actually convert them and get used to them. Okay, get rid of that. All right, so let me get to another drawing here, just so I have something to play with. And I just grabbed a drawing. I also have a drawing that you guys have as well, and I'll show you that in a minute. But the kind of procedures, if you want, we're going to kind of work on how to deal with layers. We'll talk about the palettes and all these things, kind of working our way from left to right. And then also kind of mention in Civil 3D about templates, so we'll get to that as well. So currently, if we're in the NCS standard, if you want to create new content and you want to create a layer, we have a whole new layer interface. This is completely different. Well, not completely, but it's quite a bit different than the 2007 version that you guys have been using. And so you'll kind of see here's the different components that I'm talking about. The NCS calls this discipline, major, minor, minor 2, and then status. So there's a few different ways we can do that. Right now we only have one discipline, which is currently the way you had it before. And as the user comes in, this is kind of similar to as it was before. If you're looking for a particular layer, as you click on these, it'll react with the different components that are available to you. And once you get the one you want, you can add this to the list, and it comes down here. Okay. So as I pick these, I'm adding them to this list. And again, all the colors and line types are coming from the existing database that you had. I just converted it over to make new layer names. So to kind of get used to it, obviously you're going to always be C for civil, V for survey, and there's also survey points, which is more the civil 3D stuff. But as I go to civil and corridor, civil and demolition, you'll see there's other things that are in here that you had available to you before. And so this is one way that you can actually get to your layers. So the minute that I hit OK here, all right, those layers get created, and I'm ready to rock. Okay. So that's, again, one way that you can create layers. Okay. Another way is you can go to a basic group. And for those of you who used this before, these are the exact same groups that you used before with some additions. But those are the exact same ones. So things like future mapping, see there's that S at the end of it. If I go to existing, you got the E. But then, of course, if I go to the proposed, there's nothing at the end. So we're not putting the -n at the end for new stuff. Okay. So I can do it by this way as well. I can grab these, add to list, etc. Okay. So as you're getting used to this, sometimes the category is not as good to find a particular layer. Sometimes the groups make quite a bit more sense. Okay. And of course, as I hit OK, or if I want to right-click on one of these and set it current on the way out, I can. So that one will become current. Okay. So you'll see here there's some other right-click capabilities as well. And then an added feature now is because we have so many layers in here, there's a search capability, so you can search for layers instead of just having to go find it. So let's say I'm looking for contour layers, for example, and I can just type in, some name, hit enter. It's going to search the entire database, both layer name and description. Okay. So I can search based on that name. And what we do is we can also say search for this, but exclude this. The way that we have set that up is you have to put an exclamation point. Anything to the left of the exclamation point is searched for. Anything to the right is removed. Like, for example, if I put an exclamation point and then I said, I don't want to see anything existing. So the contour will show up, but nothing that says existing. Okay. And maybe I also don't want to see future. So as I'm doing this, I'm just typing in as wherever that exclamation point is, to the left will be searched for, to the right will be removed. And I can search for the description or even the layer name as well. Okay. And so once I get the ones I want, let's say I want these here, I can add those to the list, and now I have something that I can create. Now, as an individual user, what you might be doing is creating layers quite often, the same layers over and over. So what we do is we create this capability of saving and loading layer sets. That's what this is here. And the reason why I point this out is you got to be careful a little bit here, and I'll show you why. Let's say this is 4 layers I always want to grab. So I'm going to hit the Save Layer Set. This is going to be universal to everybody's computer. You'll see there's a local, a standards library, and then you can also save it to a file. The reason why I'm pointing this out, why it can be dangerous, is if you do set it to the standards library, everybody will see that. And there's ways we can clean those up later. But if you want to be able to share that for everybody, you can do that, but that will be set for everybody. You got to kind of be careful about that. If you want just for yourself, local library is probably the safest. So I just want to point out, if you do save it to the standards library, everybody will see your fun work. Okay? So I'm just going to call this one contours. Okay. All right, so I'm going to cancel. I'm actually not going to create these. The reason for that is I come back, 4 weeks later or whatever. I come back to my layer create. Instead of having to search for those, etc., I can just load it from my list. And there's the contours that I just saved. Okay. And I must have done something wrong, so that's good old times right there. What's supposed to happen is it's supposed to load it in, and I'm not sure why it didn't, so I'll have to search why that is. It could be my installation. Okay. So this is going to be a very beneficial, of course, if it works, but if you when you load it, you can just grab it and hit OK. Okay. So you have a bunch of different ways that you can actually go ahead and create in layers. Okay. It's kind of nice, whether it be picking or what have you. All right. So Force creates those layers. Of course, you can always purge them and bring them back in. But that's kind of the process. So similar to this as well, this is a drawing that doesn't have all the standard layers that you guys use. I just grabbed something so I can kind of play for a minute. But the other one is you got the layer ID and this reset colors and line weights. I'm going to kind of explain this as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some different things on different layers here that are hopefully standard. I can't remember which ones I made. A bunch of the mapping I think I did. Okay. So I just put some things on different layers. I can always come to the layer ID, and I can also pick any one of these. It should give me an access to what the actual layer name is plus what the database says is a description. This is very similar as was before. Okay. What's a little different on this one is this drawing right here is actually an X reference. I'll escape out of this. This is an X reference. So I can also list through an X reference if I wanted to. And to be honest, I can't remember if those are standard layers or not, but if I go to layer ID, you'll see there's an option. I can type in X for X reference, and I can pick through an X reference. And it looks like that one's not a standard layer, of course. Okay. All right. So I can list through an X reference as well. The other thing that does happen, there's no way to prevent this from happening, is the user can create layers that are not standard, and a user can also change properties of layers so they're not standard anymore. So just to be kind of weird here, I'm just going to grab all these layers, and I'm going to set them to some weird color and line type. Okay. Of course, there's nothing to prevent the user from doing that. So, of course, it's no longer standard anymore. It won't plot right. So that's what this function is here. You can reset them back to what the database says to do. So if I hit this reset, I can do this through a drawing, or I can also grab the X reference and reset an X reference as well. For this exercise, I'm just going to pick these things here. Okay. And boom, automatically sets it back to standard. I don't know if you noticed, it didn't grab the contours because those are actually standard as well. So what's nice about that is I can get it back to standard pretty quickly. Okay. All right. Other workflows with layers, which obviously can be a problem. There's going to be times when you're not going to have access to the layers you want in the standard. So these kinds of things, what I would recommend doing is you can always create your own layer, but it would be nice if you send those new layers to Mark or somebody who you want to designate. Let's add this to the database, so now it's going to be standard so everybody can use it, things like that. It's going to be a moving target. Standards are always going to kind of be updating, etc. So the reason why I mentioned that is there's nothing preventing a user from doing this fun stuff, creating layers that mean nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So we have some mechanisms to get layers from non-standard to standard layers. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just draw some lines on these layers. Maybe I should have picked a different color so you can see here. Okay. So they're all based on different layers. So what we can do is we need to change those colors, 2 through 6 or whatever, into standard layers. So the workflow, instead of creating new layers, we're going to convert them. We have a whole section that we call compliance in here, where you have layer conversion, textile, and dimension style conversion. Layer conversion will be big. Textile and dimensions, I don't think really have any dimensions in the database anyway. But the layer conversion is a brand new command. And do I want to scan lock layers? Doesn't really matter. Yes, it's fine. So what it's going to do is search the entire drawing and show you whether you have non-standard or standard layers. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter only for the non-standard so I can see those. I even have some over here that aren't part of your standard, some layers that are NCS but not really in your database. So there's the 1 through 6. And what I can do here is I'm going to highlight all of them so I can see what they are going to be like here. So I'm going to highlight these guys, and there's this little walk or isolate layers. Okay. So this thing pops up, and so I can see what each one of these things are. So I can see, yeah, that's what that's supposed to be or what have you. So there's landscaping, things like that. So I can definitely walk them to see what they're supposed to be if I need, if that's helpful. Now this process can be kind of tedious because you got to say, hey, this layer goes to here, this layer goes to that, or what have you. So I'm just going to be easy about it. Let's say layers 1 through 6, I'm going to assign a layer to it. Okay. So this interface here is similar to the other one as well. This actually has been upgraded a little bit in 2014, so this will be a little different in 14. You have some search capabilities. that you don't have here. So I'm just going to randomly pick something. This is supposed to be, yeah, match line, sounds good. So I'll pick the layer I want. It'll automatically set that, and I'm not going to worry about those for this one. But this is kind of the protocol you would use if you want to convert from one to another. Or you can just go into the layer dialog box and rename layers. Okay? But this at least gives you an interface so you can make sure that you pick standard ones. All right. So you have some other options here as far as if you want to set things to by layer, line type scale, or if the layer already exists, if you want to update it, things like that, or even blocks and block attributes can also be updated as well. Are you sure? Yeah. So you see this all got converted to that new layer. Okay. All right. So kind of keeping in line with that, so we got the layer create, layer IDs to see if it's standard. We got the reset back to standard, and then we got the layer conversion. Now there's a lot more to the layer conversion that is done, but we'll kind of walk through that here in a minute. There's some other things that might be helpful as well for maybe some auditing, I guess you could call it. If you open any drawing, you can always go to the list layers, so you can actually create a printout if you wanted to of non-standard or standard layers, or even what's in the X reference. And see what are my non-standard layers, so I can make a printout if I wanted to and export that to a file or just a PDF if I need to have that information. So I can kind of do some auditing for different drawings, and I can kind of take a look what's there, what's standard, and what's not. Okay. All right. Now, because the layer conversion can be tedious, and the reason why I say that is if you have lots of layers, you can say, hey, this layer is supposed to be this one, whatever. All right, this layer is supposed to be this one, whatever it might be. Okay. So that can be tedious if you're always converting these things from non-standard to standard, or if you're getting drawings from other companies and you want to convert them to your standard. You'll have to go through this once, and sometimes you'll get new layers, but you have this opportunity also to save the layer conversion. So after I've made a few of these changes, if I hit save, this is the exact same interface that was there for the creating layers. But this layer assignment I can save to a standard or just for myself. So remember, if you're saving it to the standard library, that means you are showing it for everybody. And you got to make sure that you're not overriding, etc., just because there might be some that are in there. Now the reason why I'm pointing this out, what I'm going to do, so I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to open up your drawing that I was given by Mark that he sent. Come on. I guess I didn't open it. I will open it. I have no idea which drawing this one is for you guys, but you have a particular drawing that he gave me that has a bunch of X references and other things. And I am going to open up one of the X references just to kind of show you. I'll open up that one. Oh, of course not that one. There it is. Okay. So this one you might notice, here, let me close this out of this. You might notice these layers here. In fact, I'll show you this way. All X reference layers, but invert the filter. This is the kind of layer scheme that you guys are currently using, and so we want to convert to that. Okay. You know what? To be honest, I have a better example. So give me 1 second. I'm going to use this one. Okay. So you might notice some different layers in here, etc., from your old standard. Now the reason why I point this out is if you want to convert from your old to your new, this is kind of the workflow. So you're going to open up drawings that are going to obviously be using your old standard. So I'm going to come to my layer conversion again. And you'll see these are all non-standard. Again, I would have to go and grab it, assign layer. This is survey, so I go to survey. This is actually going to be survey points or whatever it might be. Okay. Instead of doing that, we have created a layer conversion file for you that converts every single layer that was in the database, the old database, to the new database. Okay, so when I go here to layer conversion, I'm going to come to load. And in the standard library, what we've done here is I've created this for you guys, this BKF original layers to NCS. Okay, so it's going to convert anything that was a layer from the old one to the new one, so I don't have to go and find them all. So it automatically found. Now, obviously, this one here, see, it didn't get pulled in because this layer is you know, out of the norm, so it's not your current standard. Somebody made some changes, and there's going to be probably a lot of those that you'll have to manually do or leave as is. But you can see here it automatically found each one of these to convert to the new one. And so I can even do all this stuff and convert. Okay. So now I have all the layers that way. Now the colors kind of are the same because we kept them the exact same as you currently have it. But you can see it's a very simple task for you to take, hey, open a drawing, go to my layer convert. Now obviously not going to do it now, but you go to load, and this is always going to be there. So you can just grab that and go to town. Okay. Now obviously there's going to be times when it's not going to grab every layer, and you'll have to do some of those other ones manually, like that stakeout one. But it gets you, 90% of the way there. It's a great little tool for you. Okay. All right, let me kind of go back. Of course, it's acting slow for some reason. This is I was looking for my little thing in 14, but I'm not in 14. I realized, so that's my mistake. Okay. So as far as layers go, got create new layers, reset properties back to the correct one, and convert layers to your new standard from old. Okay. All right, a few other things here we'll get to. I'm going to go to this Open Csm Palettes. This is a brand new function. This gets you to inserting symbols, details, and sheet borders. There used to be 3 different commands. Now there's 1 command. This palettes is different than the AutoCAD tool palettes. Okay, so they're completely different. This is our function. This is AutoCAD's function, so we're outside of that as well. But you'll see here there's 3 tabs across the top. Actually, buttons, I shouldn't say tabs. Where you got the symbols, you got details, and then sheet borders. So if I want to go to a detail, I would click that one. Now currently you don't have a lot of details in here, but you do have your sheet borders that you might be used to as far as the different offices. So those are all there. If I'm, kind of biased here since I'm in Sacramento, I'm going to the SAC office. Okay. So there's all the same ones you had before. Okay. Pull this a little out. There we go. Okay. But first I'm going to go back to symbols, show you around a little bit. This is going to be similar as before, where you have based on a discipline and what group you want to do, all the symbols should be in there. Very similar to what was before. However, we have some other functions and other stuff that I need to show you here. Okay. For example, I'll go to existing utility here. And of course, you just pick one of those guys that will insert. Oh, why is it taking so long? There we go. All right, there's my block, etc. What you might notice is it's tiny. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see that. The reason why it is so tiny, okay, it doesn't go on the right layer, is based on the annotation scale layer. It currently reads this. If in the database it says go in and scale it, you have to have your annotation scale set in order to do that. So for example, I'm going to draw in it that has architectural, but bear with me. I'm just going to go to quarter scale, which is 48, so it's close to 40. So when I insert it now, it's quite a bit bigger. Okay. So again, I'll list it. See, it's 48 times because it's reading this scale. Okay. So it's just something to consider. Once it's in the drawing, this has no effect on them, and it's only for new stuff that you insert. Okay. Other capabilities here, I'm going to use something. I'm going to go to propose so I can see it better. Proposed storm drain. Looks good. Okay. We have some other capabilities that are nice. You see some of the tabs in here. So I'm going to go to the Settings tab, and there's a nice little function that we have to align a symbol on an object. And I'm going to rotate this. I'm going to have some different choices. I'm going to pick 45 to kind of show you what I'm talking about. So it's going to be able to rotate it 45 degrees if I snap to something. So if I go to the Symbols tab here, and I'll pick something that can rotate. How about the SDDI? So I'm going to pick on that. What's going to happen is, not sure what's going on there. All right, so if I don't snap to anything, of course I can rotate it just fine. But if I snap to something, I'm just going to do a near snap. And if I snap to this here, It automatically aligns itself to the object, and I can rotate it in 45-degree increments until I'm decided, hey, I want it this way. Okay. So that's a nice little function to be able in the settings to set that. So if I snap to anything, this can be anything. This is just lines. If you guys remember, the subdivision in here is actually an X reference. So I can also snap to an X reference as well. So if I do out of a midpoint of a curve here, and it'll rotate to that. Okay. So it gives you a little extra functionality for rotating when you're snapping to a symbol. And of course, you got the same thing as before, is it'll scale it as well as put it on the right layer. Okay, so that's a nice little function here for the align symbol. And of course, if you want to change the size of these symbols, you can do that with the scroll bar. Or if you only want to see the image, you only want to see the name, you don't want to see anything, you have some different choices on how you want that to look. Okay. Brand new function, which is nice, is the ability to query. Instead of having to go find it, you can query just like you can with layers now. So if I go to the query section, it doesn't really matter about the all disciplines because there's only one. But what I'm going to do here is I can search for something. Let's say I'm looking for, I don't know, a manhole. So anything that has a description of manhole in it, or the name of the block is manhole, it'll find it. Move this down. And so here's all the different manholes. Find the one I want, I can insert it from here. Okay. Something funny going on in my network here, why it's so slow, but it shouldn't be that slow, but that's the way it goes, I guess. Okay. So you have this ability to query for stuff, or if I wanted it, I don't know, north arrow. All right, there's that north arrow, whatever. Okay. That one's quicker. All right. So, and then of course I can save a query if I wanted to, so I can have it in this list if I like. Although north arrows is probably not the best example because I can probably do the, thought I saw north arrows, yeah. It's actually there as well. Okay. So again, we have some different functionality for querying. Same thing with details. If you do have the details, you can also query that way, but very similar concept both ways. So hopefully it goes on the right layer with the right symbol and is scaled based on the annotated scale. Like 1 to 1, 1 to 20, 1 to 40, whatever you're using. Okay. All right, pretty simple, right? Csm Palettes. Pick which one you want. I want details, and insert the detail. That one right there, I'll pick it there. Wow. For some reason, it's slow. And there's my detail. So you can see if you have a bunch of standard details, it might be nice to place them in the database so you can easily find them or search for them. If I'm searching for, whatever. These are all manholes, so it's not really that hard to search for them. But it's a nice little option to be able to do that. Okay. Piece of cake. All right, moving right along. Still see no questions, so either you guys are eating lunch and not paying attention, or I'm just that good, I guess. It's one of the two. All right, so kind of working our way again from left to right. We got the layers, Csm Palettes where you can insert your symbols, and then we got textiles or page setups. I don't think you guys have any in your database, and then of course the conversion stuff. Okay. So again, if I wanted to select the textile, the textiles that were in your database currently, you have, looks like your Roman S, or actually this was Roman D, it looks like. The Leroy, which was a simplex, and the H, I guess, was the Helvetica of some kind. Okay, I was looking at some of your other drawings. You have lots of different textiles, but these are the standard ones that are in there. Okay, it's not that hard to go and make one and bring it in, and now it's in your drawing, ready to rock. Okay, so it's doing the math for you based on the annotated scale, scaling it up to be 0.05 on paper. That's what it's doing. Okay. So it's not that hard to create your own textile, but it's nice to have a list of them. So if you want to go grab one, it's boom, it's ready to rock. Okay. Gotcha. I just got a question. It says, how do you add details? The user cannot add or edit the content in any way. They can just use it. So that has to be submitted either to us or Mark, and then we have to actually, there's an interface, which you guys won't have. I'll just show you really fast. So there's a Standards Manager. There's an administration tool that the users will not have access to. where this is where you edit the content. So the administrator would have to come in. Oops, how about details? Add another group and add details and type this stuff in so that it would be accessed to the end user. So the users cannot, impossible, that interface will not be installed for you. So either you have to submit it to Mark, and I believe Mark might get it to us, or I'm not sure how that's going to go about, but to add in details, we would have to do that for you. The users cannot. Good question. Okay. Where was I? Okay, so dimension styles. The database has no dimension styles, so I'm not going to worry about that. Same thing with multi-leaders. These things can be added. It would be the same process as I just explained with the details. Okay. All right, so another question was, once a symbol has been added in the particular scale, is it annotative? Does the size of the scale of the drawing change? Okay. That question is, the block can be saved as an annotative block. I don't believe your blocks are set to annotative. Just to show you here, I'm just going to do something real fast. When you define a block, and you call it whatever, you have this option to say make it annotative. If it is annotative, defined that way, depending on how your settings are, when you change this, the size of the block will change. Okay. The way that it's set up now is the way that you guys do it, is nothing is annotative. So when you insert a block, let me make this a little smaller here, so it's kind of ridiculous. So when you insert a block, the only thing that's going to happen is it's going to read this, it's going to insert it, and it's going to be static. So then you have to go back to your AutoCAD skills, and if that needs to be a different size, and I'll list it for you. Okay, so you can see what the scale is. You can scale that any way you want in AutoCAD. So once it's in there, it's not dynamic at that point. So you'd have to scale it yourself, or go to properties, and this is now to be 20 scale. Okay, so you have to go back to the AutoCAD. So there's no dynamic part in this case until somebody decides to make dynamic or annotative blocks. Sometimes it's tough. I try to recommend against that because it's a little bit more complicated and everybody has to be on the same page, but it's definitely possible. Yeah. Okay. All right. Same thing with page setups, multi-leader. These three things right now, currently there's nothing in the database that can be added. That has to be, all these things that you would want added, like if you want new layers, new blocks, new symbols, things like that, would have to be submitted to Mark, and then we can add them to the database that way, but the users cannot. They can just use the software. All right. Okay, so the textile conversion and dimension style conversion is pretty similar. I don't think I have any text in this one. There's some text in here. I'll use this guy. Slow for some reason. All right, so these guys here, this might be currently, I was looking at this earlier, and you have some, this textile wasn't standard, but it might be just fine, because there's obviously going to be sometimes where you're going to have stuff that's not going to be in the database, that you'll have to work with that. But I see your question. I'll get right back to you, Jocelyn, just a minute. Okay. All right, just to show you the textile conversion. What happens is it searches the entire drawing. Either I can go to layout space or model space, and it shows me in red the ones that are not standard. That name is not standard. So if I wanted to, I have the opportunity. I can right-click and zoom to it to see if I liked it or not, or what the deal was. I can. What I'm going to just show you very briefly here is I'm going to grab everything, and I'm going to change the style, but I'm going to maintain the height because I don't want to change the height. So right now it's 6. I'm going to check that, and I'm going to say change the style, and I can pick which one I want to set it to. Okay. If I don't maintain the height, it's going to take the height of this based on 40 scale times whatever to make it the right height. Okay. Are you sure? Yes. So you can see it changes them all. If I close out, it's now that new style. Okay. And it's nice to be able to, there's some other search tools in there. Dimension style conversion is not going to help you at all because you don't have any dimension styles, but it's very, very similar. Okay. All right, so back to Jocelyn's question here. Can the status of existing blocks be converted to annotated without redefining the block? No, it cannot. It has to be redefined. Good question. Okay. Okay. very slow for some reason. It's my computer. We'll just say that. It's just my computer. All right. So again, to kind of work on our way, so on the user side, there's really not a lot that you guys can do. You're just basically using the database. So meaning creating a layer, converting it to new, inserting your content, grabbing any styles that might be there. You don't have any custom programs, any list routines, things like that are in the database, so that's not used. We're not dealing with the Civil 3D styles, so we're going to show you where that's coming from. And of course, if you have an issue with this, the easiest thing to do is either, you can contact Mark, or if you wanted to, you can also call us for support. But you have this technical support options where you can immediately click on this and submit an email to us if there's a problem or if you want to ask a question. Or, of course, you can just call. Okay, same as it always has been. But sometimes it's nice to be able to just click on that, boom, I'm ready to create an email. And, of course, there's the one thing I do want to point out is the CSM About. The only reason why I'm pointing this out is we do have patches, and sometimes the things need to be fixed and patched. In the About, it shows you the build date. So you can compare that to a neighbor of yours. Hey, what's your build date? Is it the same? Okay, so it's the same. Maybe there's not a patch, so maybe there's a problem, and then I can, click on support and send an email or what have you. But this is a nice little tool to see if you guys are up to date, similar to what AutoCAD, when they have their service packs, there's an About in AutoCAD. It's the same thing here in our Standards Manager, so you can kind of see that. All right, last thing that Mark definitely wanted me to talk to you guys about, since you now are going into Civil 3D, is a lot of people have been talking between CAD Masters and you guys, and Drew Bergesher is heading that up with the new templates for Civil 3D. And so just to remind you, it's extremely important when you start new drawings now with Civil 3D is you have to use a template. Okay. And there's a few templates that are available to you, and hopefully they're up and running now. But just to show you here, when I actually go and create a new drawing, there's a couple of different templates that you might see here. In the list here, there's two. There's the BKF 2012 with labels, and then 2012 with content. These two here will let you start with all of your styles set. And Mark wanted to make sure that you understood that you definitely want to make sure that those are set up that way. So just to point out a couple things, the one with the content, I'll just open that one just to show you. The reason why this is a nice interface here is when you open up this template, you can see some basic surfaces and lines, etc. So you can see what the label styles and how the stuff is going to look. So you can give feedback if need be, and then we can go from there. But you can kind of see things like, see there's some of the labels that will show. There's just your curve data. So there's different styles for labeling, etc. So as you start getting used to this, make sure if you don't use the right template, you're not getting all these styles. And obviously, styles are extremely important with Civil 3D to make things look correctly. Okay. So Mark just want to make sure that I made sure that you guys knew what was going on with the templates. Okay. And last but not least here with the templates is if you open a drawing that has not touched Civil 3D, or if it's an old drawing and you want to get your styles from another drawing, there's a few different ways. One is to just drag and drop, but it's just one at a time. For example, let me just do this. I'll do it with you here. So I'm starting a brand new drawing with the AutoCAD template, which has got nothing in it. It's got zilch. Okay. No styles, no nothing. So we're assuming that maybe you have old drawings that are this case, or you receive a drawing from some client that doesn't have your stuff in it. So I wanted to point out in the Manage tab of Civil 3D, so there's Standards Manager. In the Manage tab, there's a section over here to import and purge styles in Civil 3D. Some people know about it, some people might not. But just to show you here on the Tool space, if you know somewhat about Civil 3D, in the Settings tab, there's different styles. And you'll see here, like for example, under Surface Styles, it's just something called Standard, which means it has to have something in there, and it's a very poor standard. So basically, we don't have your styles in here. How do I get those into the drawing? Well, that's where this import comes in. All right, so when I go to import, I can pick from another drawing or a template, but here's the template that I just showed you, the BKF 2012 with content. So I can go ahead and grab styles from that drawing en masse. You'll compare the two different drawings, and it will add, so it should be adding a bunch of different styles, a bunch of different label styles, etc. So it's all coming in all at once, also with the settings. Are you sure? Yes. Okay. So with that command, it grabbed, it looks like 365 styles and a bunch of settings from the template. So now I have access, and there's all my styles. Okay. So again, if you don't start with the template, if you forget to do that, you can import. Obviously, it's best to obviously start with a template. Or if you receive drawings from other clients, or you receive drawings, or you open drawings that are old and don't have any styles assigned to them, you can always use the manage and import to get all the styles from those drawings into yours. Okay? Because styles is basically where it's going to be for you in Civil 3D. Okay? All right, so just a quick recap. Standards Manager, you can set the current standard back and forth between the BKF standard and the BKF NCS standard if you need to go back and forth. So if you do need to, if you want to stay in the other one for older drawings or older projects, you can still do that without having to convert. So you can go back and forth with the set. Once it's set, you can create layers, reset them back. The Csm Palettes is to get to your blocks, details, sheet borders, textiles, dimension styles, and multi-leaders, even page setups. Again, these three here there's nothing in your database currently, but can be added. Not that big a deal. So these kinds of requests, again, would be filtered through Mark, and we can go from there. So we might be, what's probably going to happen is you submit it to Mark, Mark's going to give it to us, and we'll set it up and we can get it back to you. Eventually, it would be nice if this is changing a lot to have somebody with the admin that can change it on the fly without having to wait. But that's another discussion for another time, I think. And then, of course, finally, the layer conversion. And again, just to reiterate, is if you're converting from your old stuff to your new stuff, this is going to be in there to start from. Is you can load the layer conversion very quickly, so you don't have to sit there and say, hey, this one layers this layer, etc. All right. And these are not dealing with at all. So we do have the capability of having the ribbon with the tab. We got the toolbar, which has those commands as well. And for those of you who are old school as well, you can show a menu bar, and we do also have a pull-down menu. Okay, that has the same same stuff. So we do we are in everywhere. And other than that, just to reiterate as well, is if you do not have Standards Manager tab in your Civil 3D, you might have to type in CSM at the command line. And if that doesn't work, if it says unknown command, that means it has not been installed on your machine and would have to be installed. And Mark can definitely do that as needed. Okay, that's kind of all I really needed to talk about today. Thank you for the questions. If you do have other questions, don't hesitate to contact me. And let me go back to that. Did I leave it up there? I don't remember. There it is. Okay. So there's my email. You guys might have that already. So any questions can be directed towards me. That's perfect. And hopefully that'll give you enough information to get you dangerous to start using the Standards Manager in 2012 and in 2014 for that matter. All right.